This was my 3rd year at Matsuricon and their 10th year running. The convention is held mainly in the Hyatt Regency Columbus, but this year they also expanded more into the convention center and had a few things in the Crown Plaza. When we first got there, we thought this came a couple years too early, that the con wasn't big enough for all this space, but by the end of Saturday, we knew we were wrong. The extra space was actually really nice. I hope they continue to expand deeper into the convention center in future years. The only thing we didn't like about the layout this year was that the artist alley was stuffed into 2 different rooms. Everyone I talked to said that they liked it much better when they lined the halls. I don't know why it was this way this year, but hopefully they'll be back in the halls in future years. Something we really love about this location is the food court. It's always great when a convention has a food court built in, and Matsuricon has a pretty nice one. You don't need to worry about going hungry at this con. From what I saw all weekend, registration was handled very well. The lines never seemed to get too long, and their system got people in and out very quickly. There is nothing worse than waiting for hours and hours to get your badge, but you don't need to worry about that at Matsuricon. Opening ceremonies ran very late this year, which seemed to push everything in the main events on Friday back. This was very aggravating. On top of that, a lot of panels seemed to run pretty late in general all weekend. The good news is, once they got going, they had some very cool panels. Some examples being the lip sync battle and the voice actors after dark panel. Speaking of which, once again, their guest list was massive for this size of convention. Matsuricon always seems to be able to pull a lot more voice actors and other industry guests than most cons of their size. The staff this year was really great for me and my friends, but I've heard a lot of other people tell stories of all kinds of problems they've had with them. I know last year the staff was very rude, but from my experience, it seemed to be much better this year, though not perfect. The same thing goes for organization. It felt more organized than last year in some areas, but less in others. All in all, the problems weren't anything that ruined our weekend. The dealer's room this year felt smaller. Last year's dealer's room was pretty large for this con, and this year it felt like they really scaled it back. There was still a lot in there, and some things I'd never even seen being sold at a con before. It wasn't bad by any means, just smaller. The game room also felt too small. It seemed like they haven't added very much in their game room since the first year I went. This con is growing in attendance every year, and the game room is starting to feel too small for it. Every time we went in there, it was impossible to find an open game to play or even just somewhere to sit down. That being said, the games they did have were a lot of fun, and the arcade games section had some good stuff in there as well. We just want to see them expand on this. This convention also has a movement room, where they host panels that are interactive. This is a very good idea, and we love how this con tries some more experimental type panels. One thing that did without a doubt improve was the rave. In my opinion, this was the best rave in Matsuricon history. The DJs were great, keep bringing them back and I will keep going. It also seemed like their lighting for the rave was a lot better as well. I heard there were a lot of technical difficulties that caused the rave to run late, but once it started, it seemed to go without a hitch. Good job, guys. The size for this convention is a smaller, medium-sized con. Location gets a 10 out of 10. I already really liked the Hyatt, but expanding into the convention center made things even better. Organization gets an 8 out of 10. Things were pretty well organized. There were a few problems here and there, but for the most part, things ran very smoothly. The dealer's room gets a 7.5 out of 10. It was in no way a bad dealer's room, but it felt too small for this convention. If they can bring it back to like it was last year, it would be fine. I just don't understand why they seem to scale it back this year. The game room gets a 7 out of 10. There was good stuff in there. They had some cool tournaments going on and a nice arcade section, but once again, it just felt too small for the size of the con. I would really like to see them get more consoles in there and really fill the room. There was way too much open space for a game room. Guests get a 10 out of 10. No question here. If Matsuricon does one thing better than most cons their size, it's the guests. This con is worth it just for the guest list. Panels get a 9 out of 10. There were a lot of late panels, but I blame that more on organization. As far as the panels themselves, they were very good. We had a great time at every panel we attended. Staff gets an 8 out of 10. Like I said, we had no problems at all with the staff. The only reason I didn't give this an even higher score is because so many other people have come out and said they had very bad issues with them. From what I hear, some of them were just straight up rude. This is the same problem as last year, and I wish it would be fixed. Rude staff can ruin an entire convention. The rave gets a 10 out of 10. This rave was on point. Everything ran better than expected. It without a doubt improved over last year. All in all, we had a great time at Matsuricon this year. I know I complained about a few things, but that's just because I like to see conventions improving from year to year. All around, I'm not so sure Matsuricon did that this year. But that being said, personally, this was the most fun we've ever had at Matsuricon. If you've never been and are in the area or don't mind the drive, Matsuricon is one that's definitely worth your time. At the end of the day, I give Matsuricon 2015 an 8 out of 10.